The marble floors echoed with hurried footsteps, the sound bouncing off vaulted ceilings and polished walls. Franklin Rhodes, the billionaire CEO of Rhodes Tech, stormed into his own home like a man returning to a battlefield. His flight had landed 3 hours early. No one knew. He wanted it that way. He tossed his keys onto the glass console table by the foyer. They clattered louder than expected. No butler. No welcome. Just the cold, humming silence of his multi-million-dollar estate, tucked into the hills of Carmel Valley, California. His eyes darted to the grand staircase. Empty. His black Oxfords clicked methodically as he moved toward the living room. A crystal tumbler still sat on the side table. Someone had been there recently. He didn't like not knowing who. Franklin was a man of precision. A man who controlled empires with a cold-blooded stare and exacting standards. He built his tech company from a 2-car garage to a Fortune 50 titan. Everything in his life operated like code. Predictable, streamlined, efficient. But tonight, something felt wrong. He passed the library. Still dark. The air felt different. Not stale, but lived in. Then he saw it. A flicker of light from beneath the door of the guest quarters, the servants' wing. That room should have been unoccupied at this hour. He stepped closer. The door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open slowly and froze. There, on the couch, bathed in the soft amber glow of a floor lamp, was his 6-year-old daughter, Ava. Her chest rose and fell in peaceful rhythm, cheek pressed against the shoulder of a woman dressed in plain clothes. The maid, Maria. She held Ava with the tender protection of a mother, one arm wrapped instinctively around the child, her other hand resting atop Ava's back as if shielding her from the world. Franklin stood like a statue made of restraint. His hand gripped the doorknob. His jaw tightened. His world tilted. What the hell is she doing in here? What is my daughter doing in her arms? His daughter should have been asleep in her lavender-painted bedroom, nestled under custom sheets, not curled up in the servants' quarters like an orphan. Maria didn't stir. She breathed deeply, eyes closed. Exhausted. It wasn't until Ava mumbled in her sleep and shifted that Franklin noticed the tear stains on her cheeks. He stepped back silently, closed the door, leaned against the wall, stunned. His heart pounded like war drums in his chest. Franklin Rhodes had returned unannounced. But what he had come home to, he never saw it coming. Maria Alvarez moved like a whisper through the halls of the Rhodes estate. She knew the rhythm of the house better than anyone else. When the pipes groaned, when the floors creaked, when the wind kissed the glass like a warning. She had been the head maid here for almost 3 years, though no one outside the staff would know her name. She kept her head down. She smiled politely. She cleaned messes she didn't make and listened to voices that never asked her opinion. But to Ava, Maria was a lighthouse. Ava had grown up in a home lined with security systems and antique books, but not much warmth. With her father constantly traveling and her mother gone in a car crash 2 years ago, the little girl had found comfort in Maria's presence. Maria told her bedtime stories. She made her grilled cheese with heart-shaped bread. She kissed the top of her head when the nightmares came. Maria never asked for thanks. She just loved. Franklin Rhodes didn't know how to love. Not anymore. Somewhere along the line, he had traded affection for ambition. And now, seeing his daughter more at home in a maid's arms than in her own bed ignited something inside him he didn't yet understand. Then there was Elaine. Elaine Shaw was the house manager, polished, loyal to Franklin, and always 3 steps ahead. She believed in order, structure, and the unspoken social rules of big houses. To her, Maria was background noise, reliable but replaceable. Elaine had once told a new staff member, "Don't get too friendly with the child. It confuses boundaries." That same belief system had made her a favorite of Franklin's. Elaine kept things neat, silent, and cold. And then there was Ava, 6 years old, wildly curious, missing her mother like a ghost limb. She didn't care about class systems or titles. She just knew when someone made her feel safe. Her drawings, often tucked into corners of the house, were usually of 2 women, one with angel wings and curly brown hair. Maria, the house staff saw what Franklin never asked about. The way Ava clung to Maria's skirt when frightened. The way her tiny arms wrapped around Maria's neck when the world felt too big. Franklin was beginning to see it too. And with that realization came an unsettling truth. Someone had been there for his daughter when he hadn't. And it wasn't him. Franklin didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study, blinds closed against the moonlight. The faint glow of his desk lamp casting shadows across the room like ghosts whispering secrets. His scotch remained untouched. His mind replayed the scene in the servants' quarters like surveillance footage on an endless loop. Maria? He remembered hiring her, though barely. The agency had sent her after the fourth nanny, and 6 months quit. Young, mid-20s maybe. Quiet. Hardworking. No college degree. She'd worn a plain blouse and looked him in the eye, not with boldness, but with a kind of steadiness he found unsettling. He'd almost dismissed her on the spot. But Ava had clung to her that very first afternoon like they'd known each other forever. He didn't like things he couldn't control, especially emotions. Maria Flores had been a silent fixture of the household. For nearly a year now, folding laundry, vacuuming hardwood floors, and preparing Ava's organic lunches with meticulous care. Always present, never intrusive. A low-status role, easy to overlook. Until now. Across the estate, in a minimalist guest house the size of a Manhattan apartment, lived Victoria Sterling, Ava's part-time tutor and Franklin's full-time girlfriend. Blonde, articulate, educated at Stanford, polished like a museum piece. She believed in structure, in appearances, in raising Ava to her station. And she did not like Maria. "I'm telling you," she once whispered across the dinner table, eyes darting to make sure Maria wasn't near. "The maid is getting too comfortable. Ava treats her like family. That's not healthy." Franklin had barely looked up from his phone. "She's just the help." But tonight, that phrase rang hollow. The help had been the only one holding his daughter when she cried. Downstairs, the early signs of injustice were always there. Subtle, cultural, baked into every interaction. Maria was expected to clean and disappear. Her opinions about Ava were unsolicited, her affection a silent transgression. Other staff followed that unspoken rule. James, the aging groundskeeper, kept his head down and his stories to himself. Claudine, the cook, barely spoke English and never challenged anyone. They lived in the periphery of wealth, floating just outside the frame of the family's glossy life. Victoria, on the other hand, operated like royalty. She gave orders with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and corrected Ava's posture at the breakfast table like a drill sergeant disguised in pearls. She viewed Maria's presence as a threat, not because of what she did, but because of what she meant to Ava. A crack in the system. And now Franklin, the architect of control, had stumbled upon something that defied his rules. Love where he hadn't authorized it. The house wasn't broken, but something in him was beginning to bend. By morning, the mansion hummed with its usual rhythm. Coffee percolating in the kitchen, soft classical music playing from the dining room speakers, and the rustle of newspapers being set on the polished table. Maria moved quickly, as always. Her hair was tied back in a neat braid, uniform spotless, but something in her chest felt off. Tight. Last night had been too close. Too exposed. She hadn't meant to fall asleep with Ava in her arms. But the child had wept for nearly an hour. Nightmares again. Screaming for her dad, sobbing about the Ice Queen, her private name for Victoria. Maria had held her until the trembling stopped, until Ava's breathing evened out. Maria wasn't supposed to feel this deeply. She knew that. But Ava was different. She looked at Maria like she was more than the maid, like she was safe. It was dangerous, Maria knew, to mean too much to people who could take everything away. Across the hall, Victoria noticed Maria passing and raised her voice just enough. "Maria, the floors in the solarium are streaked again. I've asked you twice now. Don't make me ask a third time." Maria paused mid-step. She turned slowly, offering a polite nod. "Yes, ma'am. I'll take care of it right after breakfast." Victoria smiled coldly. Right after breakfast means now. Ava, who had just wandered in wearing pink bunny slippers, blinked at the tension. "Maria's helping me with my puzzles after breakfast," Ava said quietly, moving to take Maria's hand. Victoria's eyes flicked down to the small fingers wrapping around the maid's. "Maria is a housekeeper, darling, not a babysitter. You have me." Maria gently released Ava's hand. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll be back soon." She turned and walked away, but her shoulders felt heavier. From the study, Franklin watched everything through a crack in the door. The way Victoria weaponized her smile. The way Ava wilted a little. The way Maria swallowed her pride. He'd spent his life building firewalls and empires, but here, in his own home, Something was corroding, something that couldn't be debugged with code. Later that afternoon, the Real explosion came. Maria was on her lunch break, sitting in the laundry room with a small plastic container of rice and beans. She scrolled through photos on her phone, snapshots Ava had insisted she take. Finger paintings, backyard tea parties. A selfie where Ava kissed her cheek and called her second mom. She didn't hear Victoria come in. "That's cute," Victoria said, snatching the phone before Maria could react. "You keep a whole scrapbook of my boyfriend's daughter. That's not obsessive at all." Maria stood up fast, trying not to panic. "Please give it back." But Victoria wasn't done. "You do realize this is completely inappropriate? You've blurred the lines, Maria. Badly. It's unprofessional. Unhealthy. And frankly, it's starting to look like manipulation." Maria's jaw clenched. "Ava asked me to take those pictures. She wanted to remember the happy days." Victoria laughed. "Oh, spare me. You're a maid, not family. You get paid to keep your distance." Maria reached for her phone, but Victoria pulled it back. "Careful," she warned. "You're already on thin ice. One more complaint, and I can have you replaced before dinner." The words landed like a slap. Maria had no union, no lawyer, no safety net. This job kept her and her little brother in there. Shared apartment 3 towns away. She couldn't afford a mistake. Or pride. She lowered her voice. "I'm just doing my job." Victoria handed the phone back like it was contaminated. "Then do it quietly." Unseen from the hallway, Ava had watched everything. Her small fists balled at her sides. She ran before either woman noticed her. Maria collapsed onto the laundry bench once Victoria disappeared. She wanted to scream, but all she could do was breathe, slow and silent. She had a secret, one no one in that house could guess. And soon they would all see. That night, Maria stayed late, even after the other staff had gone home. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. Ava had barely spoken after dinner. She pushed her food around her plate, then excused herself to bed without a story. Maria stood in the study, alone, her fingers trailing along the shelves filled with books she wasn't expected to touch. First editions, business manifestos, tech histories. The kind of knowledge the wealthy guarded like treasure. She pulled out one, The Art of Systems Thinking, and opened it gently, as if handling a friend. Pages flipped easily. Notes scribbled in the margins. But not by Franklin. By her. She turned to the back cover, where a faded yellow sticky note clung like a secret never meant to be seen. MF, final semester, top of class. He said it wasn't enough. Prove him wrong. She smiled faintly. That note had followed her from another life, before the cleaning uniforms and silent footsteps, before she dropped out of engineering school to care for her brother after their mother died. Back then, professors called her a natural. One of them even nominated her for a robotics internship. But bills didn't wait for degrees, and ambition didn't fill a fridge. Maria had filed it all away, her knack for problem solving, her love of circuits and code, like books left on a shelf in someone else's house. Now, the weight of those forgotten parts stirred inside her again. From the desk, a soft chime. Franklin's tablet had been left open. Curious, she walked over, eyes scanning the screen. Code. She read it without thinking. A broken line in the logic caught her attention. A subtle but costly error. Something even a junior developer should have caught. Maria paused, reaching for a pencil on the desk. She hesitated, then gently marked the correction on a sticky note and left it on the corner of the screen. Then she stepped back, unseen, uncredited, but no longer unseen to herself. As she turned out the lights, Maria passed the glass wall overlooking the hills. Her reflection stared back at her. Not the maid, not the servant, but the woman who had buried her brilliance beneath duty and silence. And for the first time in a long time, she felt it flickering again. Ava needed more than comfort. This house needed truth. And Maria still had a fire in her no one saw coming. 3 days later, the Rhodes estate buzzed with activity. Franklin was hosting an exclusive investor brunch. Old money, new tech, polished smiles, and sharp suits. The kind of event where appearances mattered more than truth. Waitstaff lined the perimeter like shadows. Maria moved between guests with practiced grace, offering drinks and clearing empty glasses. But her eyes were on Ava. The little girl stood beside Victoria, wearing a crisp white dress and a forced smile. Her hands stayed clasped in front of her like she'd been coached to behave, to stand still, to be a reflection, not a child. Something in Maria broke. She could swallow the threats, the humiliations. But seeing Ava so visibly dulled, that was the line. Then Franklin's voice rang through the courtyard. Victoria will now share a preview of our upcoming AI security suite, he announced, raising a glass. It's the brainchild of our R&D team, led by a select few, including, I'm proud to say, Victoria herself. Maria froze. She recognized the mock-up on the oversized screen Victoria now stood in front of, because she'd seen the prototype on Franklin's tablet. The code with the error. The one she had fixed. Victoria clicked through the presentation with confidence, explaining the algorithm behind the facial recognition module. But when she reached the final slide, the screen glitched. Then, a line of code appeared in red across the center. / error. Unresolved logic loop. Correction applied by MF. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few guests chuckled nervously. Franklin stood from his chair, confused. Victoria's face drained of color. Maria didn't move. Her pulse pounded in her ears, but her feet stayed planted. Franklin stepped forward. Victoria, he said slowly. What does that mean? Who is MF? Victoria tried to recover. It must be a system placeholder. Or a developer from another team. But Franklin's voice grew firmer. This exact line of code was on my private tablet. Not shared with the dev team. Only in my personal notes. He looked around. Who accessed it? No one spoke. Until Ava's small voice cut through the air like a bell. Maria helped you fix it. Heads turned. Maria's eyes widened. Ava. But the girl stepped forward. I saw the note. The same one she showed me in her book. The letters match. Franklin stared at Maria now. Really looked at her. M.F. Maria Flores? She hesitated, then nodded once. Yes, sir. The courtyard went silent. You corrected my code? He asked. Maria's voice was steady. There was a loop in the logic chain. It would have misfired under high traffic. I didn't mean to interfere. I just couldn't ignore it. Victoria tried to jump in. She's lying. She probably guessed it. Franklin cut her off. You said you coded the facial recognition module yourself. I oversaw the framework, Victoria admitted. The team filled in the gaps. Franklin turned back to Maria. Where did you learn to read code? Caltech, Maria said quietly. I was 2 semesters from graduating in systems engineering. My mom got sick. I dropped out to take care of my brother. Cleaning houses paid faster than scholarships. The silence broke like glass. One of the investors stepped forward, impressed. She caught a recursive failure loop that could have compromised an entire product launch. Another nodded. That's not something you guess. That's talent. Franklin's expression shifted, part awe, part guilt. Victoria, realizing the spotlight was gone, turned sharp. So what? She's the maid. This is absurd. She doesn't belong in this conversation. That was the final crack. Franklin's tone went cold. No, Victoria. What's absurd is stealing credit and underestimating the people who work harder than you ever have. He turned to the guests. I think we've seen who's truly valuable today. Then he turned to Maria. I owe you more than an apology. I owe you a place where your mind can work as freely as your hands have. Maria stood there, stunned. The moment wasn't just about recognition. It was about being seen. Franklin offered his hand. Will you come work with us, officially? As an engineer. Maria didn't cry. Not yet. She simply nodded. And in that quiet, powerful nod, the entire world shifted. The sun had dipped low behind the hills, casting golden light across the estate. The brunch had turned into quiet murmurs and private conversations. But the energy in the courtyard had shifted permanently. Maria stood near the entrance now, no longer invisible. Investors and guests approached her with genuine interest, shaking her hand, asking about her background. She answered humbly, her voice soft but steady. Her name, once unknown to them, was now the one they remembered most. Franklin had ordered someone to prepare an offer letter that same afternoon. Title, Junior Systems Engineer, he said, handing her a draft with a smile. But don't get comfortable there. I expect you to outgrow it fast. Maria stared at the paper in disbelief. The salary alone would lift her entire family out of debt. But more than that, it was her name on the letterhead, not someone else's. No initials. No stolen credit. Just Maria Flores. From across the lawn, Ava came running. This time, Maria knelt and scooped her up, holding her tight. "I knew they'd see you," Ava whispered. Maria kissed her forehead. "Only because you didn't let me hide." Inside the house, things looked very different. Victoria had been asked to leave immediately. Franklin didn't make a scene. He simply told her that dishonesty and arrogance had no place in his company or his home. She didn't fight it. She packed quickly and left in silence, pausing only once at the doorway. "I didn't think she was a threat," she muttered, almost to herself. "I just didn't think she mattered." Franklin said nothing. That silence was louder than any words. Word spread quickly through the staff. Claudine smiled for the first time in months. James nodded slowly, like something long overdue had finally come to pass. The estate, once ruled by fear and hierarchy, began to breathe differently. Lighter. Maria didn't quit housekeeping immediately. She said she wanted to finish the week, to honor where she came from. But the house no longer treated her like part of the background. She walked through the halls with quiet confidence now, and even the marble floors seemed to echo differently. On Friday, the staff held a small goodbye celebration in the kitchen. They presented her with a signed card, a brand new laptop Franklin personally picked out, and a simple bouquet from Ava. It was Claudine who toasted her, in broken English, full of pride. To Maria, "You show us what is possible. You make us proud." Maria wiped her eyes. This time, she let the tears fall. At the front of the estate, a Rhodes Tech car waited to take her to her new office, not as a maid, but as a member of the team. Before she left, Franklin met her at the door. "You taught me something I should have known a long time ago," he said. "Brains, loyalty, heart. They don't wear name tags." Maria gave him a grateful smile. "Sometimes it takes losing control to see what's right in front of you." Ava ran out behind her, waving. "I'll visit your office. Can I help you build robots?" Maria laughed. "Absolutely." As the car pulled away, Maria looked out the window at the house, the place that once boxed her in, now finally opening its gates. Her story wasn't just a redemption. It was a beginning. And for every quiet worker, every underestimated dreamer, every invisible genius, it was a reminder. Sometimes, the person holding the broom is the one who can build the machine. 1 year later, the Rhodes Tech Innovation Center opened a new division in San Jose, focused on educational tech for underserved communities. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the media flashed cameras. Reporters jotted notes, and a young woman in a tailored blazer stepped up to the microphone. Maria Flores. No longer in uniform. No longer silent. Now a lead engineer. Ava sat front row with Franklin beside her, grinning like a proud father at graduation. Maria spotted them and smiled. Her speech was simple. "I never expected to be here," she began. "But sometimes, life puts you in places not to test you, but to prepare you. I thought cleaning houses was all I could do. Turns out, I was just waiting for someone to see more." She paused, then looked out across the crowd, at the students invited from local high schools, at the young interns she now mentored, at the quiet workers watching from the back. "You don't need permission to be brilliant. But sometimes, you do need someone to open the door." Thunderous applause followed. But the real moment came afterward. A teenager approached her, a girl in a hoodie, backpack slung low, fingers clutching a notebook filled with messy sketches. "I'm teaching myself to code," she said. "But I don't think I'm smart enough." Maria knelt, smiling gently. "Neither did I. But you are. Keep building." And that was the legacy. Maria didn't just rise, she lifted. She started a mentorship program inside Rhodes Tech, pushing for scholarship funding, job training, and access to STEM education for young women and service workers across California. She made sure others didn't have to choose between duty and dreams the way she once did. As for Victoria, she disappeared from the spotlight. Rumor had it she tried launching her own consultancy, but her name had become a cautionary tale, not a brand. Her fall wasn't loud, but it was lasting. Maria never spoke ill of her. "Some people come into our lives to test us," she once said in an interview. "They show us what we're not, so we can discover who we really are." Franklin changed too. He became a quieter man, more present, more human. He credited Maria with not just saving a product, but reminding him what leadership actually meant. And Ava? She kept a photo of her and Maria on her desk at school. Not because Maria saved her, but because she taught her how to stand up, even when no one believed she could. Sometimes, the strongest people are the ones the world never notices until they change it. If this story inspired you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to be seen. Because brilliance doesn't wear a title, it wears courage.